So the New York Giants, it was a bit of a ride last year for the Giants. And you had to sum up, how you feel the Giants are doing now or whether it was what last year was. What comes to mind?
Well, last year was if it can go wrong, it will type thing. And don't say it can't get worse than this because next week will prove you wrong. Last year was a very brutal spot for the Giants where they didn't get the quarterbacks that they wanted in the draft. So they stuck at it with Daniel Jones on the second year of that contract. And I think they thought that Daniel Jones would at least be near what he had been his entire career, which is, a middle of the road type of player. And it just was very clear that after the injuries and, the HBO hard knocks of them publicly going, wanting to trade up for another quarterback, I don't know what it was, but Daniel Jones had broken. And it's not like he was all that great before then, had broken. And they were left with Drew Lock and Tommy DeVito, and they signed Drew Lock to be the backup. And Drew Lock was, a significant worse quarterback than what Daniel Jones was. So they, win 3 games. So, but now it's really all about Jackson Dart. They can talk about building a team and adding Paulson Adebo and Javon Holland on defense and stuff, but it's really about Jackson Dart, even though he's not going to play right away. That is got to be the focus of the New York Giants, is developing him and turning him into that franchise QB.
Yeah, 100%. And I mean, we could kind of just go ahead and dip into next year. Before we do that, I definitely want you to kind of shout out your channel.
Giants Nation show, Bobby Skinner. It's the number one place for Giants content, in my opinion, no matter what you're looking for. We do film, we do podcasts, reactions, live chats, try to hit it with everything that we possibly can, and just random live shows and weird locations like Charlotte Motor Speedway. We're doing one at a minor league baseball game later, and working on getting one done. Have you ever been south of the border?
I haven't.
Oh, dude, you got to go. It's like this place that's been around for 60 years. It's on the border of South and North Carolina. It's hard to explain. You just got to go. So we're going to do one there. But Giants Nation show, I think it's the number one place for all Giants content.
Yeah, I actually used to live in Hampton Roads, Virginia, and I would, over the summer, go to Raleigh, North Carolina for just the beach, and they had beach volleyball out there. But yeah, never been much more south than that. But going into the Giants last year, again, it was kind of a bit of a debacle to some regard. You had Daniel Jones. He ends up getting benched, around week 10. Then he gets, they mutually part ways in week 12. And it just seemed nothing went right last year. I would say, honestly, the one thing that did go right for y'all was the aspects of the defense. Obviously, there was stuff in coverage that wasn't doing well. Like if you were to look at the EPA per play, the one place they stood out that they were at least about average where the league was their run defense. But even offensively, it was the doldrums, as you would probably put. So you're kind of entering a year where it is Brian Daboll's last stand, and it's have they done enough for that? Do you think Daboll will be the guy that will be developing Jackson Dart after this year?
That's so tough. I do. I think that they will get another year after this season, barring disaster, which again could happen, but also I think they had disaster and survived this past year. But I was a big proponent of firing Joe Schoen and then in turn Brian Daboll after 3 years. I don't think Joe Schoen had built a good roster, and I didn't think it's on the path to being this really good roster. And Brian Daboll, I think, is a good offensive mind, but also has his flaws about lack of detail in certain areas, relationships where he's, had to replace, Wink Martindale and everything that went down with that, replaced the special teams coordinator that he lazily hired just because he was with the Giants. I mean, you hear the process of them hiring Thomas McGahee. He only interviewed for 5 minutes, and then he's like, "Do you want the job?" So he never even did, he didn't look around for special teams coordinators, taking away play calling from Mike Kafka. So I was a big proponent, especially in this spot where they might desperately take a quarterback at pick 3, right? If they had pick 1, you take Cam Ward and you live with it. But I was very much against taking Shador at 3 and Jackson Dart as well, even though Jackson Dart wasn't really much about that conversation. But now that they have traded up for Jackson Dart, what I don't want is the Giants to repeat past mistakes and I know what it'll put it in a cycle where if Jackson Dart, if they fired Brian Daboll after this year, they're not going to draft another quarterback. And I don't think they should. A quarterback should get a second year. And they'll hire the GM and head coach who believe in Jackson Dart the most. So then you're getting, 3 years where I think any Giants fan just wants them to be good. But just in that scenario of them not working out, you would hope that they get the year 2 at Jackson Dart, because then it's just the easiest decision. It's either, hey, all 3 of you guys were happy with you, or either all 3 were not happy with you. It's, I don't see, a world where those things are not non-exclusive. So I hope that they get a 5th year, just because the Giants don't need to create another cycle of hiring based on this quarterback and then that quarterback not working out. Just give them a 5th year, and that'll be a 2nd year for Jackson Dart. And it's a very clear either, hey, we're keeping this together or we're breaking it up.
Yeah, and I mean, we saw like the Bears last year. After a year after drafting Caleb Williams, they were done with Eberflus. A little bit different of a situation, Eberflus being more of a defensive-minded head coach. They go out, they get Ben Johnson, who was kind of like the belle of the ball, but an offensive-minded guy. And I have a feeling that probably a guy like Joe Brady is going to probably find a coaching job next year. So if y'all are put into that situation, I imagine he's probably front of the list if that's what happens. But kind of to switch gears to the defense, how are you feeling about Shane Bowen?
Shane Bowen, I'm not high on, but I do think he can do something with this defense. And if the Giants are successful this year, I think it will be because the defense wins games for them. Because I have gotten so excited for Abdul Carter to be added to the group they have, and then you add a Paulson Adebo and Javon Holland, who, I think some people might think Holland's an all-pro player. He hasn't played like that in recent years. Adebo's a good player, who can create turnovers, but you can create a rush with that group. You have Dexter Lawrence, who's, in my opinion, the second best defensive tackle in football to Chris Jones. Brian Burns, who's a really good player. Kayvon, this year will really decide how we fully feel about him in his 4th season. And then Abdul Carter, I think, is going to be a stud from day one. Like, I don't think there's a world where I'm unhappy with Abdul Carter. Like, the only way I can see myself being unhappy with Abdul Carter is if I have this standard of 14 sacks per season and he's getting 11, 12 or something like that. Like, I think he's going to be a stud for them. And that's something that gives you an advantage. That's something that wins games for you. If you have a pass rush that can just get after it, that will win individual games for you. You obviously got to have everything, and you need a quarterback to win long-term and stuff. But that pass rush sets you apart from other teams, right? And if you do get the quarterback right, that pass rush is what sets you apart from a team that's losing in the divisional or conference championship round every year, or a team that's going to the Super Bowl and winning Super Bowls when just having a good quarterback play is not enough. So that's what I'm excited about with this defense, is the fact that just getting the 3rd down, and you're going to be able to have Dexter Lawrence, Abdul Carter, Kayvon Thibodeau, and Brian Burns on the field. And I think that's a pretty unique advantage.
Yeah, I mean, anything when it comes to, like, if your coverage is on the struggle bus, it's going to be the pass rush. Like, you could have, like, the greatest guys out there defending, but you can only defend for how long, right? You can only be in sticky coverage for 5-7 seconds. You have nobody that can get to the quarterback, which, I mean, it feels like at this point now the Giants kind of have an embarrassment of riches, guys that can't get to the quarterback. So, I expect to see a jump with the defense. And we could kind of just get into the offseason specifically. Y'all didn't lose much of anything at all. Like, probably the biggest name, I mean, outside of Daniel Jones, again, that was kind of like middle to middle late of the year. But you had Azeez Ojulari, who was good when on the field, right? But often banged up. And then probably Jason Pinnock was the other guy, but Oh, I think you just muted.
Sorry. I said that's it. That's it. Then that's why I was a big proponent of bringing back Darius Slayton. It's like, well, why did you let Saquon and McKinney walk the year before? You have no pending free agents worth a contract outside of Slayton this year. Bring back Darius Slayton. Why create a hole that's unnecessary? And they did. So yeah, they didn't have any pending free. Again, I do a pending free agent episode every year, and this year was the most boring one of all time. It's like, all right, Darius Slayton, this is what contract he can get, and then Azeez Ojulari is not going to get any money because of his injury history. Yeah. Jason Pinnock, might get a $2 million deal. I would have loved to bring him back as a depth safety.
Yeah.
As that third safety behind Javon Holland and Tyler Nubin. But like you said, other than that, they didn't lose anybody. Even guys like Greg Van Roten re-signed with the team.
Yeah, that's wild, man. He's still hanging around. He's like, what, 34, 35?
Yeah, I think he's been on like 9 different teams at this point. He's one of the few people who's been on all 3 of the New York teams with the Bills, the Jets, and the Giants.
Yeah, that's just kind of nuts. But I mean, y'all went in free agency and y'all added like Paulson Adebo. I don't, what's word on his, like him coming back from injury? Because it was pretty
good.
Pretty gruesome.
He's practicing in the spring practices full time, so he's good. We'll see how he looks, play wise. But Adebo was the free agent I wanted pre-free agency because they desperately needed a corner. And I thought his price would be reduced a bit because he is coming off the injury. But he was the youngest out of the corners in a rich corner market. He was the youngest guy. And the Giants desperately need to create turnovers and have a corner with ball skills. And Adebo is exactly that. I think he has 11 interceptions in those last 22 games. He has a bunch of pass breakups. He's someone that you got a coach to let him do that. He's not just the greatest corner in the world. Like you got to let him cheat, and you cheat by drifting your coverages and allowing him to take chances. So that was what I wanted. I wanted Paulson Adebo. They went and got him, and then Javon Holland was that second big signing, which I think was a pivot. It was a pivot because they wanted to sign a guard. And then the guards were just super expensive, like Will Fries. He got that big contract. That was someone they were in on. So once they realized they weren't going to get any of the guards, what's the Chiefs? Trey Smith, franchise tag. Yeah. Once they realized the guys they were in on weren't going to be there for them, they pivoted and just went after Javon Holland.
Yeah, and I think with like Adebo, because over in New Orleans, like penalties were kind of the big thing with him. But he's very much a corner. It's like he wants to lay hands on the opposing wide receiver. And he's coming to a system where it's like, I think y'all's blitz rate last year was in the top 10. So these corners are going to be on islands here and there. So I think it's going to work to his advantage. It's going to be a system that he should thrive in. And Holland, I'm a Dolphins fan. And I thought Holland was reasonably good the first 3 years of his contract. Last year was a bit hit or miss. Like he had a lot of missed tackles last year, but he's got that playmaking ability. And man, the Dolphins just have a terrible track record when it comes to re-signing players we actually like drafted well. Like Robert Hunt, granted, super expensive. He left. We couldn't get Christian Wilkins back. He was expensive though. But like, I mean, I'm gonna be talking Dolphins Saturday with somebody, and it's just the mismanagement of that franchise. Like we're just gonna be stuck at being mid, I feel like, for the rest of my life. But I think Holland was a good pickup for you guys. You also went into the trenches. It wasn't just like going out and doing it in the draft. You grabbed honestly a couple of nice like depth guys in Chauncey or not Chauncey, but what was it? Chauncey Golston. Yeah, the former Dallas Cowboy, right?
Yeah.
And then you also got Roy Robertson Harris, who had kind of a weird year with, I think he was with Seattle to start the year, and then he ends up going to like Jacksonville? Somewhere.
Yeah, he traded from Jacksonville to Seattle. Or no, he was released by Jacksonville, and Seattle picked him up. I can't remember exactly which order that was. Yeah, so, I watched Roy Robertson Harris's 2024 film, and I didn't like it very much. And then another buddy of mine, Nick Pilata, who does Giants film, he's like, yeah, but if you look at the 23 film, it's a lot better. So hopefully that's what they're getting out of him. Chauncey Golston will be interesting. Now, depth is a good issue. The Giants have not had had not had depth in a long time. It'll be interesting to see, though, with Abdul Carter, because Abdul Carter kind of takes away the snaps that Golson would have got as like the third edge, or on third down, you bump him inside. Like Abdul Carter kind of takes both those roles away for Chauncey Golston. But I think they're going to find ways to get him on the field because of, like what he's been able to do with Dallas and his run stopping ability on the edge. Maybe not so much on the interior, but again, that's where his best pass rush also was too. So I really like the Golson sign-up. It was cheap. And again, the Giants have not valued depth, specifically Joe Shane, and I think that's a nice depth move for them.
Yeah, and I mean, with Abdul Carter, I mean, he's a guy that's also played off-ball. He was a off-ball linebacker prior to last year, and even then, they would blitz him from that alignment. Like, I think it was the Boise State game. Most of his reps actually came off-ball, but I mean, he was still going in there and blitzing, but he was just doing it from like the B gap and such. So like he's definitely a piece you can move around if you want to show some like exotic blitz packages. Offensively though, Russell Wilson, he's going to be the guy manning the ship here. You think that's going to bring some stability to the offense?
Well, what'll be interesting is, even though Russ has been bad the last 3 years with he had a decent stretch with Pittsburgh.
Yeah.
Is even in his worst, he's been a good deep ball passer. Like, not just, he completes them, but he throws them at like a top 5 rating and completes them at a top 5 rating. Again, even in that worst year in Denver, he did that. And that's where the Giants just have not had any success over the last, sent under Daniel Jones outside of his rookie season. Even his second year, he was efficient, but they just didn't throw it. They threw it towards the ball in the league. And Giants fans, we've been begging, looking to create more explosive plays, more explosives, because we just haven't had it. So that will be the exciting thing with Russ. And he is an upgrade over Daniel Jones, but where I get a little worried is with the Giants, who are not brimming with talent, even though I think they have a good receiving room. Where does Russ rank in the power rankings of QBs? Which I want to do that exercise before we hit training camp, because he's the fourth quarterback in his own division. And again, the NFC is not as strong as the AFC. So, where does he rank in that? But it'll be interesting to see what they can get out of him with the deep ball, because that's where the Giants have just been so lacking. I think Wan'Dale Robinson is going to struggle this year because it's not a really good fit with Russ. But what we do know is that Brian Dable is a Jackson Dart guy, right? He's the reason they drafted Jackson Dart. Is if Russ is struggling and the team is struggling, how quick will they pull that plug on Russ?
Yeah. Do you think they go to like Jameis before they go to Dart?
If Russ gets injured, yeah. If it's early in the season and Russ is terrible, let's say it's week 5 and Russ just looks like, they're 31st in scoring and they're not going to be in the deep passes, then they would. But in a realistic world, I see Russ at least getting 9-10 games, and I think at that point they would go to a Jackson Dart.
Yeah, that makes more sense at the end of the year. You get Darts. You're gonna see more of Dart in practice, and then you could maybe see what you got necessarily, especially if things are going like just piss poor near the end of the season, because then it's like, okay, everyone's job's on the line. And maybe you get, because we've seen teams jump ship from quarterbacks after 1 year. You could go back to like Josh Rosen being probably the most notorious case in recent history.
Right.
But I like what y'all did with the draft. Really do. Obviously, Abdul Carter was kind of a no-brainer, but I like that y'all didn't. You just stuck at pick 3, and you were like, yes, we need a quarterback. We're not going to force the issue here. Instead, we're going to see how the board falls, and we'll make that move into the first round for a cheaper cost to get it done if we need to. And y'all did. I thought that was a great strategy, opposed to just most teams will just send it. Like, okay, well, screw it. We're Pittsburgh. We need a quarterback. We're going to go Kenny Pickett. Or, we've seen it with like an Anthony Richardson, all the tools in the world. Send it. This is going to be our guy. But I like what y'all did there. Just trade back up for a cheap cost and back into the first round and grab Jackson Dart, who, some people, Jackson Dart was kind of weird, right? This offseason. And I felt like it was like the quarterback class in general. Either you liked it, no one really loved it, but you either liked it or you were completely out on it. So some people were like outside of their top 50 with Dart. Dart was just like inside my top 50. And I mean, with quarterbacks, you're gonna overvalue them. Like they're gonna go off the board a little bit sooner. So I thought that was probably the perfect range to go and get Jackson Dart.
Yeah, what I think, like you said, is valuable is they didn't give up a ton. You know, they gave up their second round pick, and then two third round picks, and one of those being a comp pick that was at the very end of the third round. So that's helpful too. Now, at the end of the day, if Jackson Dart is not good, no one's going to be like, well, but at least they, only gave up a second and 2/3. I'm like, I can't believe we traded up for this guy. So it just depends on how does he work out as a player. But I will look back and be like, well, at least you didn't use the third overall pick, because the debate in Giants land felt like it was Abdul Carter, Travis Hunter, or Shedeur Sanders. Like it'd be one of those three guys. Well, come to learn, late in the draft process that the Giants favored Jackson Dart specifically because of Brian Dable, even though the front office may have liked Shedeur more than Jackson Dart. So I think that was their way of being like, this is year 4. We have not drafted a single QB, right? We haven't even wasted a QB pick in the 6th round like some teams do. So they knew they had to take a quarterback, and they weren't going to get Cam Ward, who they tried to trade up for. So they got their second best guy in Jackson Dart and tried to give up as little as they possibly could in getting him.
Yeah, that was 100%, I would say, like the right approach. And I mean, you get that 5th-year option, and you're in a position where you don't need to. I say you're in a position where you don't need to start him right away, but with Brian Daboll, and I just don't know. I don't know how I feel about, like, okay, say this team goes and gets like maybe like 5 or 6 wins. Is that enough to hold on to the coaching staff after this year?
It depends on how those 5 or 6 wins come. I know people. Do those 5 or 6 wins come from Jackson Dart performing well at the end of the year? Or, did you bottom out at the end of the year? Like, or was it a simple, like, you went 1-2, 1-2, 1-2, 5 or different times that year? But it shouldn't be. Like, that's where I'm a little frustrated in the Giants world, is, like I said in the beginning, where I don't want to have a world where they fire the regime and then they hire the GM, not who's the best for the job, but the one who says he believes in Jackson Dart. But the standards should be higher, like 5 or 6 wins for a year 4 GM. Like that's the standard should be way higher than that, right? You should be a contender or close to it in year 4. And for the Giants, it's just like, oh, the schedule's hard. Well, yeah, but guess what? We're not better than any of the teams on the schedule. Like who's the team that are clearly better than the Saints? The Patriots is a toss up. We'll play them. That depends on how good Drake May is. So the standards should be higher, but I do agree that I don't think they get fired off of 5 or 6 wins.
That's good. Can you see like the GM probably getting bounced out and they just choose to replace?
No, they won't. If they fire the GM, the GM, they're firing their coach as well, which makes sense. I wouldn't want to do. Yeah, Brian Dable hasn't done nearly enough to garner being a head coach during a GM search.
Yeah.
So no, I don't see that happening. And I think John Mayer will get kind of duped into keeping them.
Okay, that's good, because I think Brian Daboll is a good coach. He got stuck being strapped to Daniel Jones. It's just kind of
we'll see. This is where I talk about like 5 or 6 wins. It's like, okay, but this is the team you've built, and now you've brought in these quarterbacks, the free agent and Russ, and the draft one and Jackson Dart. Like, show it, right? Because I think Brian Daboll's a good offensive mind. Do I think he's Sean McVay, O'Connell? No, I don't. I don't think he's on those guys' level, but I think he's a good offensive mind, and I think he's a good guy to work with young QBs. But now you've gotten your QB, so prove that you can be good. Prove that you can manage the whole team, right? Like, this defense needs to be good this year, not better, but legitimately good. So, head coach is more than offensive play calling. So we'll see. That's where it's like I want results from this team. Like My standard is not being better than Dave Gettleman as a GM or being better than the end of Jerry Reese as a GM. Like, I think the standard should be the standard that you would hold for any year for GM.
Okay. And then at pick 56, y'all go and grab Darius Alexander, who had a hell of a Senior Bowl, which was really important for those guys coming from like the group of five. Looking like you belong among competition. And actually, I remember think I got to his tape after, or maybe it was right before. And the first game I checked out was the bowl game against Pitt, where he had the thick six. And I was like, okay, this is a guy that can really line up anywhere. And that's kind of what he was doing in Mobile, was line up anywhere and just creating chaos and havoc. And a dude that's a really good athlete, really good build. And I mean, that's just going to add further depth. I mean, it definitely feels like defensively, that's probably going to be the strongest spot, that defensive line. And I mean, from inside out.
Yeah. So, like you said, with the Senior Bowl, he flashed. Every year, there's like a group of 5 players who I watch. They're my first watch after the Senior Bowl. I watched them on the Sunday after the Senior Bowl. I'm like, oh man, I didn't know who you were, but you caught my eye while you were down here. Alexander was the first guy I watched, right? So I date every report that I do. His was February 4th or whatever it was after the Senior Bowl. Got home, spent Saturday out with family and friends. Sunday, put on some tape during the Pro Bowl, and it's Darius Alexander. Because he did flash at the Senior Bowl where they let him just kind of be himself instead of being, the guy who's, the do-it-all defensive tackle for Toledo, because they didn't have a ton of production there. So, again, I think there's a reason he went in the third. He's older. He doesn't have that production, but, like, he is big, long, and talented. And the Giants have a really good D-line coach in Andre Patterson, who's been, like, accredited with helping Dexter Lawrence unlock himself as a player. Like, that is the guy that I want working with Darius Alexander. I think he's one of the biggest wild cards for this current year's team, because if he's good as a rookie, then that that group can be really nice. If he struggles as a rookie, which I think is fine, then you're talking about a defensive tackle group that has a weak link next to Dexter Lawrence consistently, because they don't really have anybody else that they can trust there.
Yeah, I mean, it's going to be kind of a revolving door next to Dexter Lawrence, but I mean, there's just so much talent on that defensive line. I mean, specifically at edge, that it's like, feels like somebody's going to step up. And you saw good things from Chapman last season, specifically as a pass rusher. So I have some optimism about the defensive line. So to start the 4th round, y'all go out and get Scattaboo. So now you got a little thunder to the, I guess, Lightning. Would you consider Tyrone Tracy Lightning?
Yeah, I'm excited to see those two guys work together. I don't know about you, but Scattaboo was somebody who, like, when I did my write-up, I had a good amount of negative points on him, but the positive ones are just so much fun. Where it's like I'm in on Scattaboo. He just breaks someone said it. He runs like an alligator. Where it's like, yeah, he's not the fastest guy in the world. He runs like horizontal with the ground, and you can't take him down because he's already playing so low. So Scattaboo is fun to watch. And I think because they have a Tyrone Tracy, there's not all these grand expectations of being this lead back, where you can use him for, hopefully in a game they're running the ball well, 8 to 11 carries in a game. And he has third down value. I think he had the second most receiving yards in the class for running backs, or maybe even the most. So, yeah, I'm in on Scattaboo. I'm excited to see the dynamic of him and Tracy as a duo, because the Giants haven't had a 1-2 punch since, Jacobs and Bradshaw.
Yeah. I mean, shoot, man, Scattaboo, I remember going to his tape and I was like, I don't know if you can get any lower to the earth. Like, he was just consistently, like, it was impossible to get leverage as a tackler on him, and he runs so dang hard. And, I mean... apparently he can pass and he can punt the football too. So a little bit of that.
So everyone's watched the Texas game, and for good reason. My favorite play in that one is a red zone stop on 4th down where they don't get it, but he breaks like 3 different tackles, and then finally like the 4th guy brings him down. And that's where it's like I get a little like, oh, well, is he going to be able to break these types of tackles versus NFL players? I'm like, I don't know, but Alfred Collins was like one of my favorite run defenders in the class, and he was able to break tackles from that guy. So, like, I think he might be able to do it at the next level.
Yeah, 100%, man. And it's going to be fun. I mean, you get now two backs with, I would say, you could utilize on passing downs, like Tyrone Tracy being a former wide receiver. I think he was a wide receiver until his final year there at, was it Purdue? Because he was at Iowa to begin with.
Yeah.
But also like Scatterboo, yeah. It's like, okay, you could have you could have both of them out there on passing downs and really don't know what you're going to get. So that's pretty fun. Marcus Bowe, I'm kind of curious. Are they working him at guard or tackle?
Right now, tackle. But I think they're going to try him all over. And I think that's what I would do with Marcus Bowe, because it's somebody who is a fan of Marcus Bowe, but also realizes, like, I hope Marcus Bowe works out, because I think he's one of the smartest offensive linemen there is. Like, he's just on a different level with the things he does. But the strength issue is an issue, and he's, not the biggest guy in the world. So I think his best position may be a tackle, because I don't know if just you put him at guard, he's going to be able to deal with the strength of some of those defensive tackles. Now, maybe you could put him at center, where his athleticism and his IQ just takes over against most nose tackles. But I think he's going to figure out at some point at some position. I don't know what it is. I think tackle might just be his best spot. And maybe it doesn't work out, right? Maybe the limitations do, stop him from, being a successful player. As I've done more and more draft stuff, I have become someone who does focus more on the negatives. People talk about, just look at the positives and build on that. But negatives stop you from being a starter in the NFL. So I do have worries of Bowe working out, but I also love watching him play. Like, I do film breakdowns on every Giants draft pick. He was the longest film breakdown I've ever done that wasn't a quarterback. Hell, his might even been longer than Jackson Dart. I think it was like 50 minutes, because there's just so much to his game that there was to talk about. So I'm a big Bowe fan. In fact, I wanted him with that 4th round pick that they picked Scatterboo with. So to get him in the 5th round felt pretty good.
Yeah, and I remember specifically in Mobile, he would stick around after practice with a few of the guys, whether it was like running through reps with Yaya Black, or I think it was like Landon Jackson was another one of them. And it's like, okay, cool. You got a guy with a really high work ethic.
Yeah. You just see in his film, like, this guy puts in work. You don't just do this stuff on accident, or off athletic ability. Like, this guy is a student of the game.
Yeah. Then you had a couple of late day 3 picks. Thomas Fedone, another guy that was at the Senior Bowl, the tight end out of Nebraska. Kind of just like this long pass catcher that I don't want to say didn't produce, but he was like kind of marred by injury early at Nebraska, and then they kind of was going through like the quarterback situation. Dylan Raiola still figuring it out, but I think we saw some of that pass catching capabilities in Mobile. And then Corey Black, who I actually liked out of Oklahoma State. I think he's a good fit for if you're going to run a lot of man or run some press, because I don't think he's necessarily the fastest guy in the world, but he is somebody that can lay hands and stick in the hip pocket of defenders. Any promise with either of those two guys?
I like Corey Black. Again, I think at the worst, you got a good special teamer, because he's pretty damn athletic. He can, when he's got his head turned, he can make plays on the ball. He just really struggles with, playing for wide receivers games, whether it's a foot jab or whatever. And he's, sometimes he'll lose the push offs. So there's things he needs to get better at. And there's a reason he went in the 7th round pick. But sometimes 7th round picks, it's like, for example, Fedone, I'm just I just don't see the path here ever.
Yeah.
With Corey Black, I can see the path to becoming, a starting or a first backup corner in the NFL, which I think if you get that in the 7th round, you're pretty damn happy with. So I like Corey Black quite a bit. I think it's surprising to see a corner with his talent in the 7th round, even though I didn't have him super highly rated.
Yeah, I think I was mid-day 3, sounded about right. So, hey, you get them late day 3, you're feeling good. Any UDFAs that have stuck out thus far?
Dude, you're gonna love this one, and I'm in love with him. He had 7 catches in college. Dalen Cambria out of Louisiana, Raging Cajuns.
Yeah,
he is, and I'm gonna look up my thing on him so I make sure I get some of this stuff right. Now, again, 7 catches in college, so you want to think he's a receiver. he's been lighting it up in OTAs, like from all the quarterbacks he's been catching passes. So it'll be interesting to see what he does as that. But let me hold on, because I want to read these things off exactly to you.
Yeah, because I was going to say, y'all brought in quite a few UDFA wide receivers. That was not the name I was expecting.
I know. So last year, he was second in special team tackles in college football. He's been a holder as well, too, since 2020. His kickers are 156 to 161 extra points in that time, 59 to 70 on field goals. In fact, his kicker, Kenneth Almendarez, won the Lou Groza Award. Got to have a good holder for that. Over 1,000 special team snaps since 2020 with only 195 on offense. He learned all three positions in college. He also was in the quarterback room as an emergency QB. And in his own words, he's going to be a coach one day. So that's one where I'm like, I've fallen in love with you. And then the OTAs. But what would be interesting with the UDFAs is the regular wide receivers that you were mentioning. Juice Wells from Ole Miss, Daquan Felton from Virginia Tech, and then Bo Collins out of Notre Dame. I think I'm going into training camp of like one of those guys flash. And we could maybe get you as like the fifth or sixth, the last spot on the roster type of players. Like go out there and just win in training camp and in your preseason games, and we'll use that as something to take a chance on or stash away for a year from now when we're looking for more wide receiver depth. So those are the guys. I like Juice Wells. Maybe that's just because I've watched so much Jackson Dart film after the draft, and he's caught some big passes from him. But I think out of those three, he is the one who does the more down wide receiver stuff. Where I think Felton and Collins are guys who they make contested grabs, but I'm not anti like the bigger contested grab type of receivers. But to be that in the NFL, you've got to be good. Like you need to be someone that's demanding targets, because you can't be wide receiver 5 and be a contested grab guy, because you're never going to what quarterback is going to take the fourth best receiver on the team and I'm throwing contested targets to? You're just not getting on the field that way, where I think Juice Wells is more of a conventional wide receiver who can win on the quick routes, win deep, even though he can be inconsistent at times. And they're obviously all UDFA. So I give Juice Wells the edge out of those two guys.
That makes me happy. I was a Juice Wells guy back when he was at South Carolina. Then he had like a devastating ankle injury, and just like the yak ability wasn't there after that. And I was like, no, because I'm a huge yak guy. I love guys that can create after the catch, and it just wasn't the same after the injury, unfortunately for him.
Right. Yeah. So, but again, maybe it's another year away from the play. And again, he did in fact, it felt like his season kind of fell apart in that South Carolina game where he had this 70-yard yak play and he fumbled at the 2-yard line and South Carolina got the ball back. So it'll be interesting to see. And he has the Jackson Dart connection, which obviously gives him a little bit of a leg up over the other guys. So those are the guys I look for out of the UDFA group.
Nice. We could go ahead and just pivot to the offense as my dog tries to tear down my door. So offensively, where do you see like position battles happening? I imagine we can maybe see some of that at the offensive line, because Evan Neal's still floating around. Is there any hope for the former first rounder?
I don't really have him. I've kind of given up on Evan Neal. I think in year 4 of this regime, most battles are pretty set. Running back was going to be interesting to see how Tyrone Tracy and Cam Scattaboo handle their reps, but the starting 5 is essentially locked in for the Giants offensive line. It's going to be Thomas, Runyon, JMS, Greg Van Roten, and Jermaine Illuminor. Like no one's getting that. I think what Evan Neal is like, all right, can you be good enough in preseason to be excited about you whenever you do get an opportunity when someone gets hurt or whatever. And then tight end, Theo Johnson's their starter. Like they actually don't have many position battles on offense. Surprisingly, for a team that was 31st in offense to return everybody, and no one's really competing for a new spot there. So the position battles are more on defense.
Okay. So with would you say this is probably one of the better set of playmakers when it comes to like recent years?
Yeah, I think Malik Neighbors is a stud. And Slayton, I think, has been a good receiver who hasn't had good quarterback play and has been pigeonholed into a wide receiver role for most of his career. And he's led the Giants in receiving four out of his first 5 years in the NFL. Like I think Slayton's a pretty damn underrated player. What'll be interesting to see is two players, Wandale, who I know what Wandale is, but he doesn't really fit Russell Wilson. So what will his role be? And then Jalen Hyatt, because Jalen Hyatt's not good, but he can run. He can run past guys. And he has the perfect quarterback in the NFL for him. There's not a better quarterback in the NFL for Jalen Hyatt than Russell Wilson, because Russell Wilson is so sideline vertical oriented. Like, there's obviously good deep passes out there, but there's much more to their game, where Russ, that's a lot of what his game is, and that's the only thing that Jalen Hyatt can do. And he's, much as Slayton and Neighbors are fast, Hyatt can just run at a different level. So Will Hyatt, not going to be a starter, never going to be a good receiver, but can you get like 380 yards out of him where he's averaging 19 yards per catch in the season?
Yeah. Did he put on weight too, didn't he?
A little bit, but he's still skinny as shit.
Okay. I was reading like, oh, he's put on like 10 pounds.
Yeah,
they
said 20 pounds. That's just not true.
Okay.
Yeah.
There we go. Back to reality. Apparently Gojo disagrees as well. How much do you think Devin Singletary will eat into the volume when it comes to the backfield?
It all depends on Cam Scatterbo, because Tyrone Tracy is their number one. Depends on how comfortable they are with giving Cam Scatterbo a bunch of touches. If Scatterbo is not ready for that load, then Singletary will get 30% or whatever. But if Scatterbo is ready to go from week one, I think Singletary is kind of just there because of the contract.
Okay, yeah. Because he's always been like, he's fine to have part of your committee, but he's never really gonna just blow the top off of defense, give you a huge chunk play. Though he had like a few last year. I know with Tracy last season, I think he had like 4 fumbles and another fumble on a kick return. Is that a concern?
Yeah, he's got to clean it up. And Singletary's not the running back to teach him that, because Singletary has a fumble problem in the NFL too. Mm-hmm. So yeah, that's obviously got to get cleaned out. You can't have your running back creating turnovers. Saquon Barkley, as much as known as big plays, like Saquon never fumbled. I think he had 3 fumbles in his entire career with the Giants. So you can't have those. So running backs can't create turnovers, or you won't be playing long.
Yeah. And I think Scatterbo was another guy. He had like 4 or 5 turnovers last year, or fumbles. A lot of them were like second effort, though. He's already broken like 3-4 tackles. They're trying to slow him down. He's keeping the feet churning, but it keeps just scraping and clawing, trying to get the ball out. Ashton Genty was like the same way. You go to that like Penn State game. It's like, he's trying to make something happen because the offense isn't moving, and just gets stuck being held up for too long.
Yeah.
Offensive line going to take a step up this year?
I think it's going to be the same. It's just about keeping it healthy, because, and actually not even it healthy. Andrew Thomas healthy. Andrew Thomas is what stirs the entire drink for not even just the offensive line, but the Giants' offense. It's not just when he's not there, they fall apart. But having a left tackle who just protects the blind side, not having to worry about it, is such an advantage in the NFL, and what you can do with sending your running back out or putting your running back in other spots, or the tight end. Like, it allows you to do so much more, and that's a beautiful thing. Like, for example, even Myles Garrett, I thought got him more than I've ever seen anybody in the NFL get Andrew Thomas, besides his first half of his rookie season. But they put him on it, Myles Garrett, one-on-one the entire game. What team plays the Cleveland Browns and just leaves Myles Garrett one-on-one? Like, it doesn't happen, and the Giants were able to do that, and that was one of their better offensive games. So he is a huge part of it. When he's healthy, you have Jermaine Illuminor, who's a good right tackle, and then your interior guys are filled with middle-of-the-road guys, but they're also high IQ. So, like, they don't make mental mistakes. So half the battle of being on the interior is being in the right spot at the right time, reacting to blitzes and stuff. And John Runyon, John Michael Schmitz, and Greg Van Roten are 3 guys who do that. They also limit you. You can't do much outside zone running and stuff. But they, at least pass protection wise, they will be in the right spots. And on the interior, that's half the battle.
Yeah, I remember entering, I think it was the 2023 draft. A lot of people considered John Michael Schmitz as kind of like one of the safest plays you can make. And it kind of feels like he's kind of just been meh, right?
Yeah, he hasn't. I was a big JMS fan, and
Same.
He's kind of fallen short of what my expectations were.
So you said there's going to be a lot of position battles with this defense. So let's just jump to the defense. And where do you want to start here?
I think the most interesting one is Deonte Banks and Cordell Flott. They're making Deonte Banks battle. Like, they're splitting reps in OTAs, and it's not just like load management. Like the other, which when everyone's battling with the first team, the other one goes with the second team. So I think that's going to be an extremely interesting one. Is can Deonte Banks? The other one will be who can separate themselves as that second defensive tackle. Darius Alexander, I think, is the guy I'm hoping for. Even though it's not a position battle because they're all play, can Abdul Carter just take the majority of reps over Kayvon Thibodeau? And then there's not a ton of position battles, but those are like the three ones I'm keying in on.
Okay. So do you think we see maybe a midseason trade with Kayvon Thibodeau?
No. I think they'll, because one, they picked up the 5th-year option, so they have another year and a half with him.
That's true.
Maybe if there's some big offer out there that you're unsurprising, but I think the Giants have so few strengths that they shouldn't try and mess with one of the strengths that they have. Like, lean into that. And if there's any fan base that doesn't need to be sold on having 3 guys, it's the New York Giants. We won 2 Super Bowls with a different, trio of defensive ends with Strahan, OC, and Tuck, and then Strahan being replaced by JPP in the second run. So I wouldn't mess with that. Unless he's severely underperforming, then you look to get what you can from him.
Yeah, and to go back to like corner, like how done are you with Deonte Banks at this point?
He's the one player who has been like bad that I'm not fully done with.
Okay.
Because one, now he doesn't have to cover wide receiver once. And he's not a guy who's getting smoked out there. Yeah. Right? You look at a lot of first-round corner busts, and I wasn't a Deonte Banks fan. I didn't want to trade up, and I didn't even want to take him in the first round without trading up for him. But he can stay connected to receivers. The issue is he has no ball skills. And if you have no ball skills and you're covering wide receiver ones, guess what? They're getting their targets, and they're going to win over you. And that's why he got beat so badly. But I think against secondary wide receiver number 2, you're facing lesser players who are worse at getting open, but also aren't going to get those same contested targets. I'll be interested to see, because Banks, I want him to be an advantage at that second corner. He's not a corner one, but can he be advantage as that second corner? That's what I'm hopeful out of him. So, like Evan Neal, Jalen Hyatt, people talk about them and hope for them, and I don't see it. Banks is, or even JMS, like, my hope for JMS is to be like the 12th best center in the NFL, and I'll be okay. With Banks, I think he can actually be an advantage for the Giants. Okay,
yeah. Because I will say I don't really have I don't mind Cordell Flott as more of a depth guy, just because he's just so lean. Yeah. And I remember entering the league, I was like, I feel like he's probably going to be a slot only. He's someone that's going to just get bodied. So I don't know how much confidence you have in him, but
he's a good backup, like you said. He's a good depth player.
Yeah. I know what the former Old Dominion corner was, a Trey Hawkins.
Trey Hawkins.
Is he back from injury? I know it was like late season.
I don't know if he's practicing in OTAs, but he should be ready for camp. He's another guy who he's big, he's fast, and he's physical. He's just got to figure it out. His rookie year, again, as a 6th-round pick, they started him week 1 because of how good of a training camp he had, and then it went bad early in the season, and then we didn't really see him until late in last year when the Giants got super injured. He played against the Saints, had an interception, had a couple nice tackles, and then he got injured in that game. So with him, it was always about year 3. What do you look like in year 3? So I think he's one of the guys I'm paying attention to pretty closely in training camp. To see what he can develop into.
Yeah, of course, your slot spot is called for. It's made. It's Drew Phillips is a freaking stud. I think he's pretty awesome.
He's a legit run defender. He's feisty, like he's an advantage. what I want to see from Drew Phillips is be able to play more cover corner. Because the run defending stuff is all good, but I want my 3rd round pick to have more than, touch the football more than one time per year. And he had 1 interception, 0 pass breakups, and the interception was basically catching a punt from Joe Flacco in that Colts game. So that's what I want to see is because, hey, he'll be a starter for this team for a couple years at least. But I want to see him again become an advantage, become someone who makes plays in coverage, because basically every time he was targeted last year, he was giving up the catch.
Yeah. I remember when he was coming out, because like Kentucky is like low key. They've been pushing out some quality DBs the last few years, but I just got Kenny Moore vibes. I think that ended up being my comp for him, and like that's
a good comp for him.
Yeah, seeing him kind of like, okay, your home might be in the slot, so yeah, let's see them ball skills. So let's just go ahead. Let's talk the schedule, and I think it's a relatively all right schedule. You got a few tough games on the road. You get to go to Detroit in week 12. I think you get the Chiefs at home, so I mean that's kind of nice. So how are you feeling about the schedule in general?
It's tough, dude. Like it's not just me being a Giants fan being like, oh, I think it's statistically it's the 5th or it's the most tough schedule in like the NFL in the last 5 years. And the response to that was like, well, we always say that, and then teams change and records change. I get that, but even the teams with bad records are teams that might be on the upswing. Like the 49ers, they're a last place team. I think they'll be a little bit better than that. The Bears, every year I fall for what the Bears are doing. Maybe I don't know if I'm going to fall for it this year, but like they have talent. Even the Patriots, I think, can be a little sneaky if Drake May is what I think Drake May can be. So even like the bad teams on the schedule aren't these easy teams, and then you have to play, your 3 NFC East division foes, and then the AFC West. It truly is just a brutal schedule, where it's hard to go through it and predict wins.
Yeah. I mean, it doesn't help when like Washington, they come out of nowhere and now suddenly they're contenders and you got to face them 2 times a year. You got to imagine Dallas is going to be better than they were last year, especially with a healthy Dak. I mean, I definitely feel that. I mean, I feel like the first because you get a late bye. Yeah, I feel like that those first 13 games are going to be kind of the struggle bus, just trying to get to your bye. And then honestly, like outside of, I think the division games are probably your toughest games to in the final stretch.
Yeah. Well, here's the crazy thing is like in the first like 10 games of the year, I think the Commanders are like the second easiest opponent after the Saints, and they were in the NFC Championship. Like it's a brutal haul for the Giants.
Yeah, having to go to Mile High and face the new Bo Nix, Sean Payton connection there. Getting Green Bay, which I mean, Green Bay is pretty darn tough team as long as they're healthy. So, what would you say? Let's go with the floor. Let's start pessimistic. What would be your win total floor wise?
3.
I
mean, they won 3 games last year. They're playing a tougher schedule. I think 3 wins is the floor.
Okay, I think that's where I was at as well. I think then more curious than what do you think a ceiling is with schedule like this?
I'd say the ceiling is 8 because one, this is where the schedule like quarterbacks get injured. Let's say Patrick Mahomes gets injured in week 2. The Giants should beat the Chiefs without Patrick Mahomes. So there's stuff like that changes. And I think Russ is someone who can have games of big points. He did that with Pittsburgh last year. He had I think 4 or 5 games of 30+ points. And I think that pass rush can win you games. I think they can win the games that they are supposed to and also steal a couple. And then maybe some teams, weaken as the season goes along if the Giants can have some help. So I think the ceiling is 8 wins.
Okay. I was about there as well. I think I had them at 7. So because again, it comes down to it's pretty brutal schedule.
If the whole NFL stays healthy and nothing like big changes, that's 7 is probably the more realistic one.
Yeah, I started this series with the Bills, and I was going through their schedule. By far, probably one of the easiest schedules I've ever seen because all their tough games are at home. I think they get like late season Eagles who I think it's like week 17. It's like, okay, well, they might have the NFC 1 seed locked up by then. I think they like get the Ravens and such at home, and it's just like it's just embarrassing. It's as a Dolphins fan, I'm looking at this like, hey, why couldn't we get that? Why couldn't we get that? What the hell? Well, why are we helping out the Bills? But hey, thank you for joining me today, man. This was fun. This was illuminating. It's nice to get someone in here that actually like follows the nitty gritty of the team because I can only do so much. Try to cover.
Oh,
everything.
dude, I love the nitty gritty. I mean, like I said, I mentioned Dalen Cambry, UDFA receiver with 7 career catches. Are you going to be at the Senior Bowl again this year?
Yes, I'm going to start making it a yearly thing. I'm going to come better prepared with recording equipment. I felt like I was bringing out a webcam and some little lapel mic, and I was like, this isn't enough. I need to get a full setup.
My first year there, I didn't even bring them. Actually, I brought this. It was actually this microphone and my laptop. I just kind of went. So it's one of my favorite trips of the year. Actually, it's not one of. It's my favorite trip of the year.
Yeah, no, I had a blast. And like, I will say, like, Mobile's like downtown is like one of the nicest downtowns I've ever seen. Because I used to live in New Orleans, and people always talk about Bourbon Street. And let me tell you, it is a very, very trashy downtown outside of Bourbon Street.
Yeah, I've heard. Mobile is my favorite place in the world. Like, it has the highest crime per capita or whatever in the world, but it's also my favorite place in the world.
Does it really?
Yeah, I think it's the number one crime rate per citizen or whatever in the country.
Oh, dang!
I'm gonna Google that right now.
My wife wanted to come with me this next year. Maybe I'm like
nothing to worry about.
That's wild because I didn't feel that.
Let's see. Hopefully this isn't. Yeah, Mobile, Alabama, literally number 1.
That's insane.
Now they don't have the biggest population. Arizona's got 3 through 9, and then it's a bunch of California.
Oh, don't say that. I live in Arizona. I mean, I believe it.
Anchorage, Alaska is number 2, which is kind of crazy. And then let's see. Total. Now the total is Mobile, Alabama is in the 36. So you're good. Just above Miami and below Orlando, which is where I'm sandwiched in between.
Well, hey, thank you for joining me today, Bobby. You want to go ahead and shout out your handles, let the people know where they can find you?
Yeah, just look up Giants Nation Show, and it should pop up whether you like Instagram, Facebook, YouTube being the main one, and at @BobbySkinner_ on Twitter. Appreciate it, dude.
Hey, easy breezy. I look forward to seeing you in Mobile, but as always, until next time, be easy, my friends. Later.